NASCAR, we avoided it for a little bit, but we're back to the NASCAR Cup Series. So if you watched the grid live wrap-up and grid encore, you would have already seen our colleagues on the NASCAR Cup Series championship race. Particularly, they weren't happy with the situation with Denny Hamlin. After coming close to winning a championship multiple times, last Sunday seemed to finally be Hamlin's day as well. All of the heartbreak he previously experienced would become a thing of the past, and finally, he would get the one thing that has eluded him for all these years. Until a late race caution with 3 laps to go when William Byron blew a tyre and hit the wall. This set up a period of NASCAR overtime, and before the last restart, we saw mixed strategies with some staying out and others pitting. Hamlin's number 11 team completed a 4-tyre pit stop, while Kyle Larson's number 5 team decided to gamble and take 2 tyres instead. The gamble paid off for Larson as he had the necessary track position to claim his second Cup Series championship. Despite leading 208 of 319 laps and moments away from a long-awaited title, Hamlin went home empty-handed and suffered another heartbreaking defeat. He was very emotional after the race, sitting in his car and staring into space, and at points looked like he could start crying at any moment. Hamlin told reporters after the race that his fun meter was pledged, and in that moment, he didn't want to race a car again. Flash forward 48 hours after the race, NASCAR held the end-of-year awards banquet in Scottsdale, Arizona. Once again, Hamlin made headlines after answering questions about his future. He told reporters that he's going to need some time to process this whole situation and doesn't even want to think about racing right now, despite having a contract for next year as well. Hamlin also acknowledged that he feels bad that his situation is taking away from its friend Larson's championship victory. Larson told Ryan McGree from ESPN that it doesn't feel right Hamlin could have the best car and do the best job all race long, but not leave as the Cup Series champion. During his victory speech last night, Larson gave Hamlin a shout out for holding himself a championship standard and acknowledging how hard he works. The room gave Hamlin a standing ovation with claps and cheers. The situation with Hamlin's dad has understandably made this a more emotional situation for him, as he's reportedly terminally ill, and Hamlin admitted that this was the last time his dad would be able to see him win a championship. Link to Hamlin's comments in the video are in the video description, and photo is taken by James Gilbert from Getty Images. Once he's had some time to decompress from all of the raw emotions, do you think Denny Hamlin will return in 2026, or could we see him pull a Carl Edwards and walk away, Matt?
I mean, what a situation. I mean, yeah, you have to feel for the guy, no matter if you're a fan of him or not. Matthew here, deep breath, here we go. Myself, Matthew, Seth, doing the race call, our final NASCAR race we were doing on Mixler on the USRN network. I'm sure Josh, who can't be with us tonight, and of course JT were doing the same in that last green flag run towards the end. I'm sure they were doing it on TV too. I'm sure they were doing it on MRN in those last laps when Hamlin was clearing the lead. The build to the final, here he is across the line, speech. I'm sure Lee kind of had it mentally prepared, perhaps in the back of his head on NBC, although his call of the actual finish was not great, in my opinion. We were all ready. We were all talking about it. I'm sitting there going, we're talking about this, but the race is not finished yet. And we've seen punches throughout the day. And much like every other NASCAR race that has ever run and will ever run, there can be and will be seemingly be a late race caution. It happened on Friday, didn't it, as well, in the truck race? Although that ended up with the eventual champion being kind of who everybody wanted, unless you were a fan of the other 3. You just is he going to get, if he comes back? It depends. I think it depends on what happens with what's happening off the track, to be honest. Whether Denny is on the grid at Daytona in February or the clash at Bowman Gray a couple of weeks before, on my birthday. Because if that goes the way away from Hamlin, he will really feel like the world is against him, and of course his dad's health as well. it all could become a little bit too much for him over this sort of Christmas period and stuff. So we'll have to wait and see how all of that pans out, I guess. It wouldn't surprise me if that's the last time we see him in a car as a full-time competitor. Sure, he'll come back and do the All-Star race because he'll be eligible, and those kind of things perhaps pop up here and there if he was to retire. And that's a big if at the moment because we don't know. Matthew says he's not going anywhere. He absolutely loves the attention, the amount of eyes that are on him, and the articles that are written about him. And I'm sure, Matthew, because they haven't, well, as far as I know, they haven't recorded it, but it certainly hasn't been released at the time that we are on the show doing this live. The podcast this week will be astronomically listened to by everybody, won't it? Because they all want to hear in great detail what Denny and the guys have got to say on Actions Detrimental later this week when that finally drops. So I'll say again, I'll say this on the air now instead of in chats. I know I've got the flag behind me. I wanted Chase Briscoe to win on Sunday. He was my pick my preseason pick was Tyler Reddick to win the championship. My pre-playoff pick was William Byron, and my pre-Sunday pick was Chase Briscoe. That didn't happen. He was probably the worst of the 4 championship contenders on Sunday. And for reasons that we all know, Denny Hamlin was that. I guess technically he wasn't. Is he the closest man to win a champ? Wow, actually, I'll just thought of another one. Is he the closest man to a championship that never won it? Because I was going to mention, obviously, Brazil 2008 Felipe Massa, but of course Olivier Jacques in the 250 class of MotoGP, as it was the 250 class of MotoGP back in 2000, won the Phillip Island Grand Prix, which was the last race of the year, to beat Shinya Nakano in the race by 0.015 of a second and also win the championship. Can't get much closer than that. So it's a real shame on all the Denny fronts, and that's all been covered and will continue to be covered through the off season. We don't need to get into the here, whys, and hows of playoff formats, overtimes, points, championships, etc., etc. But on the Denny side of things, you have to feel sorry for him. Will he ever get another chance? Who knows? He's been close before, and this in NASCAR terms, this is probably the closest someone will get without winning. I don't think we'll ever see anything like that again.
Yeah,
especially if
absolutely.
they're changing the format for next season, of course, which won't be a one-race shootout. I'll drop that in before Ben types it in the comment box.
Yeah. You mentioned our call as well at JB Motorsports. I know Joshua Birch isn't here right now, but I can actually get you what he texted us immediately after we finished.
Okay.
I don't agree with that. It was Denny's. This feels like a little hollow of overtime and NASCAR champ rules as well. But yes, similarly to you, we weren't a fan of it at all. I don't think anyone was as well, as we have Ben in the live chat as well. There you go, Matt.
50 points taken away from Mark Martin for him on a team penalty and lost to Dale Earnhardt by 26. Well, that's still not as close as losing by 4 places in a championship row, whatever it was between Larson and Hamlin at the finish line on Sunday, because everyone was looking at those two. And don't forget, Ryan Blaney actually won the race. And if he'd not been bumped out of the way by William Byron at Martinsville last week, he'd have been the champion. How things can change, how fluid this motorsport world is.